Imagine a river in North America 75 million years ago. The air is thick, humid, and smells of sulfur and decaying vegetation. On the muddy banks, a young Apalachiosaurus, a relative of the T-Rex, approaches the water's edge to drink. The surface of the water is as still as glass. There is no ripple, no sound, only the distant call of prehistoric birds. But beneath that murky surface, a shadow is moving. It's not a fish, and it's not a dinosaur. It is something far older, a lineage that survived the Great Dying and perfected the art of the ambush. Suddenly, the water explodes. A massive bulbous snout lined with teeth the size of bananas lunges forward with the speed of a strike fighter. Before the dinosaur can even let out a cry, 20,000 pounds of pressure snap shut on its neck. This is the death roll of a titan. This is not a crocodile as we know it today. It is a monster that reached lengths of 12 meters and weighed as much as 2 African elephants. In an era ruled by the tyrant lizards, this was the creature that made the land dwellers fear the water. Today, we go beneath the surface to uncover the biomechanics, the history, and the sheer brutality of the ultimate river king. Here it is, Deinosuchus. To understand why Deinosuchus is so well known compared to other ancient crocodiles, we have to look at its bones. Found across the United States, from the dusty plains of Montana to the swamps of Georgia, the fossils of Deinosuchus tell a story of extreme specialization. First, let's talk about the skull. A modern saltwater crocodile has a skull length of about 75 centimeters. Deinosuchus? Its skull was over 1.5 meters long. It was thick, heavy, and built like a biological battering ram. But the most mysterious feature was its snout. At the tip of its nose, Deinosuchus had a massive, inflated, bulbous opening. Scientists believe this might have served as a resonance chamber for deep, low-frequency bellows that could be heard for miles, a sound that would vibrate through the chest of any creature nearby. Then, the osteoderms. These are the bony plates embedded in its skin. In modern crocodiles, they act as armor and heat regulators. In Deinosuchus, these plates were massive, deep, and heavily pitted. They weren't just skin deep. They were a suit of heavy armor that made the creature nearly invulnerable to the claws and teeth of theropod dinosaurs. But the real secret lies in its teeth. Unlike the slender, needle-like teeth of fish-eating crocodiles, the back teeth of Deinosuchus were short, thick, and blunt. They weren't designed for slicing meat, they were designed for crushing bone and turtle shells. When Deinosuchus bit down, it didn't just wound, it pulverized. How powerful was the bite of a Deinosuchus? To answer this, paleontologists used computer modeling to compare it to modern predators. A human bites with a force of about 160 pounds per square inch, or PSI. A great white shark bites at 4,000 PSI. Even the legendary Tyrannosaurus Rex is estimated to have a bite force of around 8,000 to 12,000 PSI. But Deinosuchus lived in a different league. Estimates suggest its bite force reached a staggering 23,000 to 100,000 pounds per square inch. This is enough force to crush a modern SUV like a soda can. But why did it need so much power? During the late Cretaceous, North America was split by the western interior seaway, and massive sea turtles like Arsalan were common. These turtles had shells as hard as stone. Deinosuchus was the only predator capable of snapping those shells open in a single bite. But it wasn't just turtles. We have found fossilized vertebrae of hadrosaurs, duck-billed dinosaurs, with Deinosuchus tooth marks deeply embedded in the bone. This proves that this giant wasn't just a scavenger, it was an active hunter of the largest animals on the continent. To visualize the world of Deinosuchus, you have to forget the map of modern America. 75 million years ago, a massive inland sea divided North America into 2 smaller continents. Laramidia to the west, and Appalachia to the east. Deinosuchus ruled the coastal margins of both. It lived in brackish water, where rivers meet the sea, thriving in estuaries and bayous. This was a tactical advantage. It could move between the freshwater rivers to hunt dinosaurs and the saltwater lagoons to hunt sea turtles and giant fish. The climate was greenhouse hot. Massive fern forests and cycad jungles provided the perfect camouflage for a 35-foot green-brown predator. Because the water was warm year-round, Deinosuchus didn't have to worry about the metabolism drops those modern alligators face in winter. It was a 24/7 killing machine, growing slowly but steadily for over 50 years to reach its maximum size. For decades, paleontologists were locked in a heated debate. Was Deinosuchus just one giant species, or a collection of different monsters spread across the continent? For a long time, the answer was 4. Scientists pointed to Deinosuchus hatcheri, riograndensis, schwimmeri, and a fourth one known as Deinosuchus rugosus. But in 2020, a groundbreaking study by paleontologists Adam Cossette and Christopher Brochu changed everything. They conducted a massive re-examination of every skull fragment and jawbone ever found. Their conclusion? The fourth king, Deinosuchus rugosus, didn't actually exist as a separate species. Its fossils were so similar to the others that it was collapsed into the eastern lineage. This left us with the 3 official clans of the Deinosuchus Empire, each ruling a different corner of prehistoric North America. First, the northern giant, Deinosuchus hatcheri. Found in the rugged landscapes of Montana and Wyoming, this was the largest of them all. Living in the shadow of the rising Rocky Mountains, it had to be massive to compete with the early ancestors of the T-Rex. Its body was built for pure power, acting as the ultimate deterrent in the river systems of Laramidia. Second, the southern titan, Deinosuchus riograndensis. This species patrolled the sun-drenched coasts of Texas and Mexico. It shared its home with some of the most famous horned dinosaurs in history. Because the southern waters were rich with giant sea turtles, riograndensis evolved a skull that was incredibly wide and thick, perfect for the high-pressure crushing needed to break through bone-dry shells. And third, the eastern ruler, Deinosuchus schwimmeri. While its brothers ruled the west, Schwimmeri was the undisputed god of the east, in a land called Appalachia. It was slightly smaller than its western cousins, but in its world, it didn't need to be bigger. The land predators in the east weren't as massive as those in the west, meaning Deinosuchus schwimmeri could dominate its ecosystem with zero competition. Why does this matter? Because it shows that Deinosuchus wasn't just a biological accident. It was an evolutionary masterpiece that adapted to 3 different climates and 3 different sets of prey. Whether you were a dinosaur in the cold north or the tropical south, the shadow beneath the water was always there, waiting. The distribution of these 3 Deinosuchus kingdoms also demonstrates their long-standing presence in North America. In fact, the average lifespan of a Deinosuchus could exceed 50 years. But how is this possible? Most of the dinosaurs that shared the Cretaceous world were biological rockets. A Tyrannosaurus Rex, for instance, grew at an explosive rate, reaching its massive adult size in just under 20 years, only to die shortly after reaching its peak. Their lives were fast, violent, and relatively short. But Deinosuchus played a completely different game. To uncover the life story of this giant, paleontologists looked at the osteoderms, the heavy bony plates, that acted as armor on its back. These plates grow in concentric rings, much like the rings inside a tree trunk. By counting these growth rings under a microscope, scientists discovered a shocking paradox. Deinosuchus was a slow-motion monster. While a T-Rex would be considered an old man at age 28, a Deinosuchus at that same age was often still in its teenage years. The data suggests that these crocodilians required over 35 years just to reach their maximum adult size, but they didn't stop there. Evidence shows they could continue to live and grow for 50, 70, or even 80 years. Think about the tactical advantage of this longevity. A 12-meter Deinosuchus wasn't just big, it was a veteran. It was an animal that had survived decades of environmental shifts, hundreds of seasonal floods, and thousands of encounters with other predators. While generations of tyrannosaurs were born, hunted, and died out, the same Deinosuchus remained anchored in its river, growing larger, heavier, and more experienced with every passing decade. This slow growth also explains their massive size. Because they lived so long and never truly stopped growing, a trait called indeterminate growth, time was their greatest weapon. They didn't need the frantic metabolism of a dinosaur. They simply outlasted them. In the murky waters of the late Cretaceous, patience was the ultimate predator. A Deinosuchus could wait for weeks for a single perfect meal, knowing that it had decades of life ahead. It was a living relic, a silent witness to the rise and fall of the dinosaur kings. What does an 8-ton crocodilian eat? The answer is anything it wanted. For the younger and smaller Deinosuchus, the diet consisted of giant prehistoric fish and the massive sea turtles that were common in the seaway. We have found coprolites, or fossilized dung, containing the crushed remains of turtle shells, proving that their blunt back teeth were specialized bone crushers. But as they reached their massive adult size, their targets changed. Deinosuchus became a dinosaur killer. Fossil evidence shows that they frequently hunted hadrosaurs, duck-billed dinosaurs like Parasaurolophus, and ceratopsians, horned dinosaurs. Imagine a 3-ton dinosaur coming to the water's edge only to be met by a strike force faster than a rattlesnake. With one bite, the Deinosuchus would utilize the death roll, spinning its massive body to disorient drown, and literally dismantle its prey in seconds. Despite its size, Deinosuchus was not alone. It lived in a world of giants, leading to one of the most terrifying rivalries in natural history. Some even say that Deinosuchus was a formidable opponent and a match for T-Rex. But did Deinosuchus actually fight tyrannosaurs? While it didn't live at the same time as the T-Rex itself, which appeared a few million years later, it shared its habitat with the ancestors of the king. In the west, it was the muscular Daspletosaurus, and in the east, the agile Apalachiosaurus. These were the ancestors of the T-Rex, apex predators with bone-crushing bites of their own. Monsters that were 9 meters long and weighed several tons were the lions of the land. The relationship between a Tyrannosaurid and a Deinosuchus was a tense, deadly standoff. We have found Tyrannosaurid tailbones with Deinosuchus bite marks that had begun to heal. This suggests that Deinosuchus would often lunge from the water to snag an Albertosaurus's tail, or Apalachiosaurus's leg as it walked too close to the bank. However, the rivalry wasn't one-sided. If a Deinosuchus was caught on land, or if a young individual was found in the shallows, the Tyrannosaurids would not hesitate to retaliate. It was a brutal balance of power. The Tyrannosaurids ruled the forest, and the Deinosuchus ruled the water. But in the kill zone, the narrow strip of mud at the water's edge, it was anyone's game. But when those lions came to the water to drink, they were no longer at the top of the food chain. Once the fight moved to the water, it was game over. One grab on the leg, one death roll, and the dinosaur would be dragged into the depths, drowned, and dismantled by the sheer force of the water's pressure. But the Tyrannosaurids, like Apalachiosaurus or Daspletosaurus, weren't the only threat. In the deeper waters of the seaway, Deinosuchus occasionally crossed paths with Mosasaurus, marine reptiles that could reach similar lengths. While they likely avoided each other, boundaries of their kingdoms often overlap, creating a world where danger came from the forest, the river, and the open sea simultaneously. As we have seen, Deinosuchus was the undisputed king of the rivers. But what happened when this freshwater titan ventured too far into the salt? 75 million years ago, the coastlines of North America were the meeting point of two completely different empires, the Empire of the Swamp and the Empire of the Deep Ocean. This brings us to one of the most terrifying what-if scenarios in prehistoric history, the encounter between Deinosuchus and the mosasaurs. While Deinosuchus was a crocodilian adapted for ambush, the mosasaurs, specifically the early species like Tyrannosaurus that lived during the same period, was a marine lizard built for pursuit. One was a heavy armored tank, the other was a sleek biological torpedo. Imagine a Deinosuchus swimming across a coastal lagoon to reach a new river delta. It is buoyant, powerful, and protected by its thick osteoderms. But beneath it, the water drops into the dark blue of the western interior seaway. From the depths, a 13-meter Tyrannosaurus detects the vibrations of the giant crocodile's tail. To the mosasaurs, everything in the water is prey. It accelerates, its powerful tail flukes, propelling it upward like a missile. In a direct head-to-head collision, Deinosuchus has the advantage of defense. Its back is an impenetrable shield of bone. If the Tyrannosaurus tries to bite the torso, its teeth might snap against the armor. But Tyrannosaurus has a secret weapon, pterygoid teeth. It has a second set of teeth in the roof of its mouth, designed to hold struggling prey in place. If Tyrannosaurus can grab the softer underbelly or a limb of Deinosuchus, the fight turns into a brutal tug-of-war between two of the strongest bite forces in history. But if the Deinosuchus manages to land even a single bite on the Tyrannosaurus's slender neck or tail, the fight is over. The 100,000 pounds per square inch crushing power of the Deinosuchus would snap the Tyrannosaurus's spine like a dry twig. While there is no fossil evidence of a death match between these two yet, but their territories overlapped frequently. These were the two ultimate predators of the late Cretaceous. One ruled the mud and the reeds, the other ruled the abyss. When they met, it wasn't a hunt, it was a war. To truly understand Deinosuchus, we must look at its birth certificate. In the world of biology, Deinosuchus is classified within the superfamily Alligatoridea and the clade Crocodilomorpha. This is a shocking revelation for many. Technically, Deinosuchus is more closely related to the modern American alligator than to a true crocodile. However, don't let the name fool you. While modern alligators are often seen as the smaller cousins of crocodiles, Deinosuchus was an evolutionary deviation, a biological experiment designed to see just how massive an alligatorid could become. Its skull was fundamentally different from its modern relatives. It wasn't just a big alligator, it was a specialized bone cracker that had diverged from its ancestors to rule the Cretaceous rivers. The question inevitably arises, was Deinosuchus the largest crocodilian to ever live? To answer this, we must put it in a time machine ring against the other record holders of Earth's history. There was Sarcosuchus, the supercroc. Sarcosuchus imperator lived 40 million years before Deinosuchus in what is now Africa. Sarcosuchus was slightly longer, potentially reaching 12.5 meters, but it was built differently. It had a very narrow, gharial-like snout. While Sarcosuchus was a master of catching giant fish and mid-sized dinosaurs, Deinosuchus wins in raw power. The skull of Deinosuchus was much wider and heavier, designed for crushing armored prey that Sarcosuchus simply couldn't handle. Then, Purosaurus, the Amazonian nightmare. Purosaurus brasiliensis lived in South America just 8 million years ago during the Miocene. This is the most balanced what-if fight in history. Purosaurus was a massive caiman with a skull even wider than Deinosuchus. Most paleontologists believe Purosaurus might have been slightly heavier and possessed a bite force that was equal to, if not slightly higher, than Deinosuchus. However, Deinosuchus had a more robust set of dorsal armor osteoderms, making it the tank of the two. And why Deinosuchus remains the ultimate predator. Even if Purosaurus was slightly heavier or Sarcosuchus slightly longer, because Deinosuchus lived in the most dangerous era in the history of life, the age of the dinosaurs. It had to contend with Appalachiosaurus, the ancestors of T-Rex, and also the threat from mosasaurs in the overlapping area between the sea and the river estuary. Its ability to remain the apex predator of the waterways for 10 million years, among the deadly land predators, and also the rulers of the ancient seas, solidifies its legacy as the true tyrant crusher. But if Deinosuchus was so powerful, why isn't it here today? It didn't wait for the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs 66 million years ago. Deinosuchus disappeared from the fossil record about 73 million years ago. Why? The answer might be the very thing that made it successful: its specialization. As the western interior seaway began to retreat and the climate changed, the massive sea turtles and large hadrosaur herds it relied on began to shift their migration patterns. A predator that weighs 8 tons needs a massive amount of calories to survive. When the mega prey vanished, the mega predator followed. It was replaced by smaller, more agile crocodilians that could survive on fish and smaller mammals. Deinosuchus was a victim of its own greatness. It reached a size that the changing Earth could no longer support. Today, the saltwater crocodile is the largest living reptile, reaching 6 meters long. It is a terrifying animal, but it is only half the size of a fully grown Deinosuchus. Looking at a Deinosuchus fossil is a reminder that Earth once belonged to monsters that we can barely imagine. It was a creature that bridged the gap between the land and the sea, a silent guardian of the Cretaceous waterways that commanded respect even from the mightiest dinosaurs. It reminds us too that no matter how powerful a king might be on land, there is always something bigger, hungrier, and more patient waiting beneath the surface. Thank you for watching this deep dive into giant crocodile. If you want more prehistoric mysteries, hit the like and subscribe button. Don't forget to share the video too. Until next time, stay curious.